Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us inside the Americas. Here's a look at what's coming up in today's show. Devastating floods in Peru wreak havoc in the country, leaving close to 80 dead and some 650,000 affected. Hong Kong and China become the latest countries to pull Brazilian meat off the shelves as the scandal surrounding its safety grows. And to mark this week's International French Language Day, we will visit a French school in Colombia. I'm Jeannie Godula. First up, our picture of the week. It comes from dramatic amateur footage of the devastating flooding this week in Peru. This woman you're about to see, completely covered in mud, is seen emerging from fallen debris in a suburb of Lima. She only survived by grabbing onto a tree branch and is now in the hospital in stable condition. Others, though, weren't so lucky. Close to 80 people were killed and dozens hurt as heavy rains carved a path of destruction.
Welcome relief from some of the worst flooding seen in Peru for years. Airlifts have been carrying thousands of people to safety as the rising floodwaters sweep away farmland, homes and lives. And there could be weeks of torrential rain still to come.
We lost everything. The water came in, we lost everything. We have nothing.
The army has been working to help stranded individuals reach dry ground, while the Peruvian Air Force has been flying in and out of the low-lying coastal regions, the worst hit by torrential downpours and heavy floods. Emergency measures currently apply to roughly half of the country. In Lima, authorities say the water supply has resumed in Peru's capital, but only 80% of flood-affected areas have access.
The biggest challenge for the relief effort is to ensure the timely arrival of the rescue forces if new disasters happen, to calm down the affected and make sure they are safe.
Water is a priority in the coastal city of Trujillo, where many of the country's exports are produced in nearby farmlands. Peru's president has been visiting some of the worst-hit areas and says that aid from the country's neighbors has been vital in restoring security.
The help we've received so far has come from Chile, Colombia and Ecuador. Obviously, help from Venezuela is also welcome. The foreign ministers in the airport in Lima receiving the aid. An inventory of everything's being carried out. And there's a lot of help, above all from Colombia, with the helicopters, which are very important.
This spate of flooding in Peru, which started in December, has been blamed on unusual weather patterns caused by the El Niño phenomenon. Exceptionally warm water in the Pacific Ocean has caused torrential rains along South America's western coastline.
Next now, our number of the week, 15 billion. Every year, Brazil exports $15 billion worth of meat, the biggest export market in the country. But that number is sure to go into freefall as more and more countries are pulling Brazilian meat off the shelves. That's after Brazilian meatpackers were accused of selling meat long past its due date and using chemicals to try and make it look and smell fresh. Anka Ula reports.
Something's rotten in Brazil, and it's infecting one of the country's top exports. Brazilian police named several of the country's top meatpacking companies in a probe, alleging they bribed inspectors and politicians to let them sell and export meat that was not safe to eat.
Our investigation has found that some meatpackers use acid and other chemical components forbidden by the law or in quantities much higher than those authorized by the law to cover up physical aspects of the food.
The police operation, codenamed Weak Flesh, marked the start of a downward spiral for one of the only industries that wasn't hit by Brazil's two-year recession. Brazil is the world's biggest exporter of beef and poultry. Last year, more than $13.9 billion of meat was shipped around the world. Two of the companies named in the probe were JBS, the world's largest meat producer, and BRF, the biggest poultry exporter. Both deny any wrongdoing in the matter. President Michel Temer was quick to reassure trade partners that the problem was being handled. He even invited foreign ambassadors to a steak dinner to prove the quality of the meat, insisting only a small portion of production was affected.
We have more or less 4,850 meatpacking plants in Brazil. Only 3 of them have been closed, besides 18 or 19 factories that will be investigated.
But despite the president's efforts and the government barring the export of meat from the 21 plants under investigation, a handful of major importers still dropped Brazilian meat in the wake of the scandal. Brazil's 2 top meat buyers, China and Hong Kong, banned some of their meat imports, as did the European Union, Canada, Mexico, and Chile. Meanwhile, health officials are scrambling to inspect meat already on Brazilian shelves in an attempt to regain public trust over a problem they say is highly exaggerated.
Let's take a look now at the big stories this week out of the United States. FBI Director James Comey has publicly confirmed for the first time the Bureau is investigating whether the Trump campaign coordinated with Russia to influence last year's presidential election. That remarkable disclosure came out at this week's hearing. Donald Trump has denied any collaboration between his campaign and Russia, but several congressional committees are also investigating, ensuring the allegations will stay in the spotlight for months to come. Continuing fears about terrorism have pushed the U.S. to ban laptops and tablets on some long-haul flights. Electronic devices larger than a cell phone will now be kept out of the passenger cabins of planes flying directly from airports in several Muslim-majority nations. U.S. officials say the ban was prompted by reports militant groups were planning to smuggle explosives onto flights inside electronic devices without saying whether a specific plot had been discovered. And President Trump signed legislation this week adding human exploration of Mars to NASA's mission. The new law approves close to $20 billion in spending, the first big increase for the space agency in 7 years. The measure also supports use of the International Space Station through at least 2024, along with private sector companies partnering with NASA to deliver cargo and experiments. Well, this week marked French Language Day, la Journée de la Francophonie. Some 220 million people speak French around the world in places often far, far away from here. Case in point now in Colombia, where students are becoming bilingual, thanks to their French school.
It's 6:30 a.m. and 14-year-old Sarah is getting ready to go to high school.
J'ai français, j'ai maths, je crois 1 heure. Je sais pas si j'ai techno.
Sarah's Colombian. Her and her sister both go to a French lycée in Bogota. But at home, everyone speaks Spanish.
Have you taken a snack?
Yes, I have.
What have you taken?
Some camembert and bread.
I decided to send them to this school after hearing an elderly lady talking about her experience. She went to the first French lycée here. She said that the college taught her how to be free and happy. I thought, that's what I want for my girls. That's what counts.
I wouldn't be happy in a school with a strict uniform.
Their French secular education doesn't come cheaply. It's a fee-paying private school, so only available to the most well-off Colombians. A private chauffeur takes Sarah and her sister to school. A drive through the northern suburbs of Bogota.
Nous, les petits riches, on peut dire, on est dans une bulle protectrice. On voit pas vraiment ce que c'est la Colombie.
The Lycée Louis Pasteur currently has 2,000 pupils, from nursery to the age of 18. At 7:20 a.m., Year 3 are starting their French lesson.
Dans ce chapitre, au sujet de la question de l'identité, qu'est-ce qui vous semble intéressant? Il s'agit en fait de permettre aux élèves d'apprendre à lire le monde où ils sont, à lire la littérature, à lire un film. Ça permet de mieux lire la Colombie, c'est très bien.
This young generation of Colombians are growing up in a different reality to their parents. Their country finally at peace.
Well, we will leave you now on Sesame Street, where the famous American TV show for preschoolers has a new kid on the block. Her name is Julia, and she's a redhead who knows the lyrics to all her favorite songs. She also has autism. The character was developed after a 5-year outreach effort to families and experts on autism. Julia will debut next month, and the puppeteer who operates her has a son on the autism spectrum. She says if his friends had seen his behaviors, like flapping hands or getting overexcited, before experiencing them in the classroom, they might not have been so frightened when they met him. We'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching this Inside the Americas. We'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.